hate making decisions.
You gotta take care of yourself.
If you're gonna be successful, if you're gonna become a better man,
start small, think big.
There are times when you just think, fuck it, I just want to quit. You've got to learn to do the exact opposite.
Starting today.
Thank you and good night. This has been Take Traction. You're welcome. Let's go. Good morning, Cristiano Brea. How you doing, brother?
Good morning, Charlie Santa. I'm doing fine. Almost the end of the week. Getting started.
I love your morning conversations always in relation to where we are in the week and how hard the week has been. It's been a good week. It's been good.
It's been a good week, indeed.
I am coming to you, ladies and gentlemen, today from a kind of marquee type thing on a rooftop of a building in the middle of Mexico City, and I have no doubt that there'll be lots of background noise at some point, including very large articulated trucks, lorries coming past. Unfortunately, I am living right now right by, it seems to be the Coca-Cola route, like the place where Coca-Cola brings all of its big trucks through every single day. And I'm talking hundreds of massive trucks. You know, the articulated lorries, the ones that like have, they're two fucking lorries.
Semi-trucks or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are coming through all day, every day. Unfortunately, when they stop at the traffic light right out the front of our building and have to get going again after stopping, it makes a heck of a noise. So, with that said, you'll have to excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we've got an interesting topic coming up for you, and we're going to be discussing split testing on Facebook and how split testing has evolved over time, and how you can utilize new features on Facebook, namely A/B testing, which is a new feature, or relatively new. These have been around, I think, since the beginning of 2018, but they're fairly new features. So A/B testing and dynamic creative. So, without further ado, let's jump in there. Now, I should first highlight that for years now, it's been very difficult to split test on Facebook. There hasn't ever been a native feature to do it, and it's been kind of quite an advanced technique for people to do. And you've had tools like Adespresso, and I can't think of the name of the other tool that I used to use, a similar tool to Adespresso, that have always kind of simplified the split testing process. But essentially what you'd have to do, up until now, we have, just a very quick background for people who aren't 100% clear on the way Facebook ads work. You have it's very similar to Google AdWords, really. You have the campaign level, and you have the ad set level, and then you have the ad level. And you have to fill out all the information in each of these levels to create your entire campaign. So at the campaign level, you can select your objective, such as traffic or conversions or maybe page likes or whatever it may be. And then on the ad set level, we have the opportunity to select our audience, our targeting. So that can be based on demographics. It can be male, female. It can be age groups. It can be based on interests. It can be based on what device they're using. Sorry?
Or website visits or pages on the website.
That could be your custom audience. Yeah. So you could have created a custom audience, and that would be on the ad set level. That would be where you'd select your custom audience if it was based on your website traffic or something like that. So you've got a bunch of different options for targeting on the ad set level. And then on the ad level, you've got your creative. So you've got your images and your text and your links. Basically the thing that people are going to see when they see your ad. Basically up until now, in order to test your ad creative, you would have always had to have one ad set with multiple ads inside it. But that's never worked very well with AdWords, there you go, with Facebook ads, because, it's always, what Facebook does when you do that. If you have one ad set, one campaign, one ad set with multiple ads in it, let's say 2 to keep it simple, Facebook actually selects which ad it thinks is going to be more successful, very early on. And its algorithm chooses which ad to display to people because it wants to display the best ad that's going to please its consumers, because we have to remember that Facebook's ultimate goal is to make sure that it's providing the best content possible to the users of Facebook. And so it doesn't actually allow for thorough testing. It doesn't let both ads run for a period of time with equal amount of traffic, right? So very quickly you'd notice that if you set up 2 ads within one ad set, after 1 week, you'd probably have one ad with, let's say, 10,000 impressions, and the other ad would only have maybe 900 impressions. Because in those first 900 impressions, for whatever reason, Facebook has decided that it's not going to be the best ad. So it starts displaying the other one. Now, on the one hand, you could say, this is great because Facebook does it for you. It decides which ad is going to be best. But on the other hand, it's not been a fair test, right?
Does Facebook actually know?
Exactly. And you're trusting an algorithm here. You haven't let this test run for 2 weeks with the exact same amount of traffic on both ads. So Facebook doesn't really have conclusive data, at least in my opinion, when it makes this decision.
It's a bit weird because if you compare it with AdWords, where you can, select the percentage you want sent on a specific landing page or the other version of it, or if you want to test 2 ads, one against the other. Again, you can come to the percentage in terms of splitting the traffic, which is really, really cool. And I think Facebook should have this. Don't you agree?
Well, Facebook does have this, and that's what I'm going to talk about.
All right.
But that's pretty much been the way you've had to do it up until now. So that'd be the way you would test your creative. So it's kind of restricted. And here's the other problem with that, right? If I want to test different images, and I want to test different headlines, and I want to test different text, how can I do it? Because I want to test, I don't know, perhaps one image works best, but it works best with one particular headline. Well, how am I supposed to know which headline that image is going to work best with unless I create, if I've got 2 images, 2 headlines, and 2 descriptions for my ad, let's say. What am I going to do? Am I going to create like 8 different combinations of those headlines and images? Well, I could do that, but it gets very time consuming and kind of painful, especially if Facebook is just going to decide which one's the best one anyway after about 5 days.
Right.
So it makes it kind of difficult really to do some good testing on Facebook on the ad level. The ad set level, on the other hand, this is where, as I mentioned before, we're targeting our audience here. We're selecting who we're going to target with our ads, who we're going to display our ads to. And this is a little bit easier because we can create various ad sets within one campaign. And that allows us, and then in each ad set, obviously we've got one ad, or multiple ads if we're testing those ads as well. So this is essentially the way that you've had to split test for a long time now. And if you ever used a tool like Adespresso, which made it much easier to set up split tests, because you would basically define what you wanted to test. If you said, I want to test gender, male and female, and age groups, like a span of 5 years from the age of 20 to 60, so 20 to 25, 26 to 30, so on and so forth. Then suddenly Adespresso would create the campaign for you with all these different ad sets, which if you're going to do on your own, you'd have to go through. You'd create one ad set, and then you'd have to duplicate the ad set and change the age, and then you'd have to duplicate that again and change the age, and duplicate it again and change the age. And then if you think, well, I want to test male and female as well as age groups, well, you'd then have, say you'd start with male, you'd have 5 different age groups for male, and then you duplicate all those 5 age groups and switch them all to female. And then you think, well, I want to test on desktop and mobile because that's really important for me to get that data. So then you duplicate all of those ad sets, and you've now got a bunch for mobile and a bunch for desktop.
And each ad set costs you can put a minimum of $5 on each ad set.
This is where it becomes a little bit troublesome. So with each ad set, Facebook makes you have put a minimum budget of $5 down for an ad set. So it can get really expensive pretty fast. I mean, if you want to run a test for literally just that, age groups and gender and mobile and desktop, you're talking probably well over $100 a day. Definitely well over $100 a day.
Just for a campaign.
You're probably talking about 50 ad sets. Yeah. So if that's, $5 a day, it's going to be $250 per day just to run your test to start getting this data.
That's a lot of money when you're just a startup, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And you got to remember this split testing isn't profitable or directly profitable, right? It becomes profitable because you get the data and you learn and you can then create killer ads. But it isn't profitable to begin with. The testing period isn't profitable. So it can be really quite challenging to be willing to spend, $250 a day. Even if it's less, let's say it's half that and you're not testing desktop and mobile, you're just testing gender and age and you're still spending $100 a day, For someone who's not confident that it's going to be worthwhile doing it, that's kind of a bit off-putting. And so the result of that has been that A/B testing has been pretty kind of off bounds, to a lot of people. It's just been really challenging for most people to be able to do it and have the confidence that it's worthwhile doing it. And so, the whole reason I wanted to give this background is because of these new features in Facebook that have basically really made it completely accessible to almost anyone now. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you are advertising on Facebook, which you probably should be, because that's also Instagram and Facebook Messenger, then you have no excuse, right? You have absolutely no excuse not to be A/B testing nowadays.
Indeed.
Why should people A/B test, Christian? How can let me give you a little moment here. Why should our audience here, our listeners, dear listener, be running split tests on ads?
Well, it's pretty simple. Why would you spend, maybe $100,000 to learn what you can learn with $5,000 invested?
Can you explain why? What do you mean $100,000?
Well, if you don't A/B test, you might need to take the longer journey, right? You might need to not test, but run campaigns, run ads, and understand. It's really hard to understand what's not working from an ad unless you got a lot of traffic to it.
You don't know what you don't know, right?
And you don't. That's the problem. You don't really know that ad that you're running will convert.
Yeah, and you might get lucky, right? Let's say you set up an ad and it just happens to be profitable right from the beginning. Okay, lucky you. Well done.
But the next one doesn't work.
Well, hold on. It could be more profitable. You don't know. You might have a profit margin of $50 for a product, right? Let's say you've got a 50% profit margin. Your product costs $100. It costs you $50 to produce and you make $50. And let's say you're getting conversions through Facebook for $35. All right. And it's your first ad that you've created and you go, well, I'm making money. This is great. Let's keep putting money into it. Well, unless you've A/B tested, you're never going to know if it was actually possible to get conversions for $10. And let me tell you this, if you could get conversions for $10 instead of $35, you'd be doing it.
Of course.
So it's simply a case of there's always a better option. And I will 100% say that it is very rarely what you think would work best. Right, the image that you think will attract people most, the text that you think will attract people most, and all those other details, you're usually not right. So stop leaving it down to human decision and leave it down to the data. And that's really what split testing is. And so let's jump into these features quickly just to kind of wrap this up. So first of all, I want to talk about the A/B testing feature. So basically when you create a new campaign in Facebook ads, you go to create, and it will give you the option, the top right, it will say, you'll have the option either, it will say switch to guided collection or, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. Let me have a look. I've got one of my accounts open here. Excuse me, there's some people on some running machines in the background, on some treadmills, which is always what you want when you're recording a podcast.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're going to create, I know one of them says switch to guided creation or switch. So we've got switch to guided creation. That's where you want to go, basically. If it says switch to guided creation, you want to be in guided creation. Oh no, I've just seen that they've added it to the quick creation option as well. So you've got the guided creation option and quick creation, which basically both allow you to. The guided creation just gives you a little bit more help when you're creating your campaign, but I don't really see the need in it. Now I can see at least in the quick creation there is a split test option as well here. So if we go straight from quick creation, because it's going to be cleaner and more simple to do, and we check the split test option, which used to be called A/B testing, so I think they might be making some changes there. You've then got the option, it says variable. What would you like to test? And we can test creative, we can test delivery optimization, we can test audience, and we can test placement. All right, and so this is a very, very quick way for us to set up some tests. None of this manual stuff. So if I go and select audience, for example, it then comes up with it lets me choose how many ad sets I want to set up. Now, because the variable is audience, then the number of ad sets is going to be the number of different audiences that we'll actually have. So if I go and select 4, right, you can have a maximum of 5. And then I can name all of these audiences and so on and so forth. And I go back and select 2. I know you can't see my screen here, but I'm just playing around in the background so I can have a good idea of what's going on. So I've now got two ad sets set up, and I'm naming them test, and I can save to draft. Now, doing it this way, okay, so now what I've got here is a campaign setup, or is a split test setup with 2 different audiences straight from the get-go, and it allows me to, on the ad set level, I now have an option where you would normally select the budget and all these different things. I now have an option to split the traffic between the percentage split, as you were saying before, Christian, between the 2 different ad sets.
There is an option.
Oh yeah, 100%. So
nice.
Here I've got an even split or a weighted split. So in this case, this is actually for the budget. So how much I want to split of the budget, right? So if I want, if I want to spend $100 a day, just as an easy example, I can select what percentage of the budget is going to go on which ad set. Ideally, if you're going to run a proper split test, then you want it to be evenly split between each of your ad sets. Excuse me. So that is a very quick way for you to start building ad sets, start building split tests, straight from the get-go. Test it out in the quick creation option, as I was saying before, and the guided creation option. I think probably the guided creation is going to actually be easier here. I was saying to use the quick creation before, but it doesn't seem to be quite as thorough. So get in there and start playing around, and you're gonna start noticing some really powerful differences, and I think that's important. I
think Facebook went a long way from where they used to be in terms of the PPC platform.
Oh, big time!
Now, when I played around with Facebook and Facebook ads, you had some options, but you're really, really limited.
Yeah.
But nowadays, they keep adding modules, they keep adding new features, new things that you can use to improve your ads, and increase your revenue.
100%. Yeah, 100%. They've been releasing so many new features, and especially with the kind of development of, with the growth of Instagram as a new platform and Facebook Messenger as a completely separate and new tool, there's a lot of opportunity on Facebook at the moment. I really highly recommend people who aren't using it to get involved and start playing around with that. And so you can also do this with creative, right? You can also use the split testing option with creative, meaning at the ad level, so with different images and things like that. The cool thing about this, right? The cool thing about using the creative option in split testing on Facebook is that normally, if I was to create 2 different ad sets with 2 different ads. So each ad set had a different ad, because I wanted to give equal traffic to those ads to run a proper test, like I was saying before, right? Which you can't do with that within the same ad set, because Facebook decides which ad is going to be the best one to display very quickly. So if I wanted to evenly split 2 ads, then I would have to, with the same amount of traffic, I would have to put them in 2 different ad sets. But what happens when I've then got 2 ad sets with the same audience? They're then competing with each other. So we're going to have the same problem. And there's not actually a problem with that. You're not going to end up literally competing with yourself, because Facebook has considered that, and they've got, their algorithm will ultimately decide which ad to display, so you don't end up raising your own bid against yourself because you're competing with yourself. But basically, it doesn't work again. Whereas what happens when you select creative as your variable for a split test on Facebook is that it does create 2 different ad sets, and you can have the same audience and there will be no overlap. What it will do is it will split the audience equally between the 2 ad sets, so you don't have any audience overlapping, which is really cool. It's the perfect way.
That's what you want.
Yeah. So here's the thing though. We've still got the same problem of, what if I want to have different headlines with different text, with different images, and see what combination works best? It gets a little bit more complicated, because I'm just going to end up having to create a load of different ad sets. And remember, I think Facebook with the split testing feature will only let us create 5 ad sets at most. So I can only create 5 combinations of things. And quite frankly,
so it can still get quite expensive.
Well, it'll get expensive, but we can't have more than 5, so it'd be $25 a day. I think with split testing as well, it does allow you to reduce the budget as well, because it is for the sake of a test. I don't think the $5 minimum applies, although I'm not certain on that. I have to look into that. But honestly, if you're creating a Facebook ad, you should be testing at least 5 images from the very beginning. If you are not using at least 5 images, then you're losing money, literally, because out of 5 images, 1 is going to perform better. And quite frankly, no matter how much of a genius you are, you do not know which one it's going to be until you test it. So only being able to create, run 5 different tests on the split testing feature, it means we can't really test different headlines with different images, and it just means it all gets a bit messy quite quickly. And so that's where this other feature, dynamic creative, comes in. And I know some of you out there might be listening to this, and this might be kind of old news, because this has been a feature that's been out for a while. But I was talking with Christian yesterday, and we kind of forget sometimes, we're working with 7, 8 different accounts on Facebook and AdWords and all sorts of different platforms at all times. And so while things are very apparent to us because we are working from Facebook ads every single day, perhaps some of these things aren't quite so obvious to other people who are maybe just using Facebook for their own businesses, and don't really get to, due to budget and things, don't really get to spend that much money on Facebook to be able to learn. Whereas we've been incredibly fortunate in that we've been able to spend other people's money for the past few years to get that experience and really understand the platforms.
Principle to go by.
No, it makes sense, right? It's good. So the other feature that I wanted to talk about, because of this kind of problem we've got with not really being able to test the ads as nicely as we'd like to, is dynamic creative. And dynamic creative is an option you can select on the ad set level. It's just a little switch, a little checkbox or an on-off button. And you can switch that on. Nothing will change on the ad set level. You can continue selecting your audience. Yeah, you can get everything set up there. And then when you go through to the ad level, you'll now be allowed to, instead of just being able to upload 1 image and fill out 1 description box and so on, you'll be able to upload a bunch of different options. So you could upload 10 images, right? And 10 different text variations. I'm sure there's a limit. Maybe you can't even go past 10, but let's say it's 5. All right, I can upload 5 images, which you 100% should be doing, anyone listening to this, at least with the image. The image is the most important. Then I can upload 5 variations of descriptions, different texts. And the idea, of course, with all of these is to get them as far away from each other as possible. I don't want to have similar text. I don't want to have one description be similar to another description, because then that's not going to be a clear, conclusive result. So I can upload a bunch of descriptions, a bunch of headlines like titles. I can even select different button options. So the button options you might have on Facebook would be sign up, learn more, shop now. So we can test out those different buttons as well. And the cool thing about this is that we can upload it all into one ad, and what Facebook will do is it will go about basically combining these different parts of the ad to work out what starts to work best. And it will, from what I've seen, at least for a couple of weeks, it will just be displaying these on a completely random basis. So it will combine all the different images with the different headlines and different text, different buttons, so on and so forth. So basically, from just creating one ad, you've instantly been able to create this really very complex split test, right? That you can really learn a lot from very fast. And the way you can learn from it, and again, you want to be careful not to jump into the data too early on. You've got to make sure you've given it some time to get some conclusive data. But you can probably within a week or two, depending on your budget, you can go back to the ad set level. I'd recommend going to the ad set level. It'll still work here. And if you then go, there's a drop down in the top right of the screen that you'll see, and it says breakdown. And then you can see the performance of your ads based on the demographics of the people that you're targeting. You can see all sorts of things based on the devices they're using. But more importantly, there's also an option that says by dynamic creative. So you click the drop down that says breakdown, and then you select by dynamic creative. And then suddenly, in the reporting, in the table on the screen, where you could just see the data for your ad set before and how it's been performing, your clicks, your conversions and all that stuff. Now you've got a bunch of different rows. You've got the main row for the entire ad set, but then you'll have a bunch of different rows for all the whichever option you've actually selected. So if you go breakdown by dynamic creative and then you select images, you'll then see how all the images are performing and what they're doing. What kind of results they're getting in, and then you can select by text, and you'll see what all the text is doing and which one's performing best. So, any of those real bad performers, you can quickly get rid of them. And if you've got, say, 3 images that are performing really great, kind of fairly similar, and the same, a couple of descriptions that are performing quite well, the great thing about this is you can just leave them in there, and Facebook will, continue to work out which combinations are going to work best, and not only which are going to work best for in general, but which are going to work best for what particular type of person. So its algorithm is going to be working out whether a combination of this image with that title, it works better for males, but it doesn't work so good for females. So it'll be displaying different images for females and things like that. So it's a very, very powerful way for absolutely anyone to begin split testing on any budget. You have no excuse for this. It doesn't cost more than $5 per day. And you can get some amazing data, even if you don't even adjust it, right? And you don't remove any images, you don't remove any text, you don't remove anything at all from the campaign. If you just upload 5 images, 5 descriptions, 5 headlines, and you select maybe a couple of buttons, you are already doing better than 99% of the people out there, because you've given Facebook enough stuff to work with, right? You've given it loads of stuff to work with, and now Facebook's going to go and optimize the hell out of it for you. Whereas you could have just created one little ad with one image, one headline, and you would have never known which was really going to work. If something else could have worked better for you. And in this case, you don't have to know which one works better for you. I personally want to know so I can learn for future campaigns. You don't even have to. Just upload 5 images and let Facebook do it. Let Facebook optimize the hell out of it. From my experience, you are going to see 100%. You're going to see every time, you're going to see better results than you would have if you were to just create one ad. And the cool thing about this, right, if I go and create my ad set with my audience, and let's say my first audience is males aged 21 to 25, and then I go and create my dynamic ads within that ad set, I can then duplicate that ad set to target females who are 26 to 30, and it will still have all those dynamic ads or the dynamic creative in the ad, in that new ad set. So it makes it really powerful for you to quickly scale some incredibly large experiments. So let's say we just wanted to test male and female and mobile and desktop, right? That's going to be 4 ad sets. I'm going to have 2 for male for desktop and mobile and 2 for female for desktop and mobile. And within each of those, I could have maybe a potential combination of 30 different ads, really, because I've uploaded 5 images, 5 texts, 5 descriptions, and so on and so forth. So in a very short space of time, for a budget, in that case, if it's 4 ad sets, it'd be $20 a day, right? I am testing the hell out of everything. I'm testing gender, I'm testing device, and I'm testing a shitload of images and text and all that stuff. And it's probably only going to take you, 20 minutes to set that up. So
it's really powerful.
It is really powerful.
It's really cheap. Imagine having all these campaigns set up. You'll probably end up paying what, $500 a day?
Exactly, something like that.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
So
that is that. Go and get stuck in, guys. If you have any questions about Facebook ads in general, but obviously if it's related to this, even better, then hop over to Facebook. Head over to facebook.com/take traction. I will put the link in the show notes. And leave us a comment, leave us a little message, and we'll get back to you. You can send us a direct message or whatever. We'd love to be able to help you out with this stuff. Come and join the community over on Facebook. On top of that, please, as always, if you're listening to this, as a podcast through iTunes or wherever it may be, then please help us out by leaving us a review. Honestly, you have no idea how much it helps. I say this every time, but it really does help to get some feedback from people, whether it's good or bad. We just want to hear from you and know what you think of the podcast. Are we doing a good job? What kind of content would you like to hear more about? So if you can leave a review, that'd be really, really cool. If you're watching the podcast, if you're not watching the podcast, then you should be. Head over to YouTube. I'll leave the link in the show notes. We are now recording all of our podcasts on video. So tune in over on YouTube, and you can also watch the videos over on our website at taketraction.com. So don't forget to subscribe to YouTube if you like the videos. It just gives us the opportunity to come up on your home feed, basically, which is great. It really helps us out a lot. If you see something you like, you can watch it, but you're not obliged to have to watch anything, of course. So why not hit subscribe? That's what I say. So that is everything for today. Thank you for tuning in, guys. As always, I've been Charlie Center.
And I've been Cristiano Brea.